Michelob Ultra and Mich Ultra wholesaler Better Brands Incorporated are excited to announce a new partnership with Sober Skipper, part of the Sea-Tow Foundation. While we know consumers enjoy relaxing days on the water with ultras in hand, it's important to remember to drink and boat responsibly. Choose to be or to designate a sober skipper before leaving the dock. Do it for your family and friends, your passengers, and everyone else on board. Michelob Ultra salutes all sober skippers who take the pledge. Cheers, and we'll see you on the water.
Realtree has always had a connection to the fishing industry and the outdoor lifestyle. In 2016, Realtree expanded on the traditional business of creating the world's most effective camouflage patterns to create a fishing brand and family of patterns designed to connect the woods to the water and strengthen the bond between the two worlds. We couldn't be more excited to be working with the industry's top brands, retailers, and anglers to continue our growth, and we hope that you will join us. Enjoy Realtree fishing patterns inshore, offshore, on the lake, or at the dock. Learn more about the extensive line Realtree fishing patterns, apparel, gear, and more at Realtree.com.
One thing that all of us outdoorsmen and women love to do is travel, whether to fish new waters or to chase wild game in other areas that we may not get opportunities at in our own area. Our friends at Monster Reservations Group want to open up an entirely new chance for you to travel and enjoy the outdoors or just relaxing. With over 40 destinations in the U.S. like beautiful Gatlinburg, Tennessee, Wisconsin Dells and Shenandoah Valley, Virginia, Poconos, Pennsylvania, and even our backyard here at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And many more. They are going to give you twice the vacation. That's right. Pay for 4 nights and you're going to get 4 nights for free. That's $498 for an 8-night stay at one of our incredible destinations, and that's for simply listening to Trilogy Outdoors. Go book your trip and get all the details at www.monsterrg.com. That's monsterrg, all lowercase.com. Pay less for an incredible opportunity to explore the outdoors in your choice of over 40 destinations. Book your trip now.
Trilogy Outdoors.
All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of Trilogy Outdoors, and today I have a special guest. I'm going to be interviewing my partner. No, I'm just kidding. It is just the two of us today for a change.
Yeah, we decided to do something a little different today and talk about some topics that, really I think are interesting to everybody, but we needed to dig in on them. There's going to be some times throughout the year that we're going to have some conversations like this just between us, and I hope you enjoy it. I think it's going to be interesting and fun.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I want to touch on one thing and tell you congratulations on the new vessel, the new lady in the driveway.
Yeah, we're excited about that. It's time to get another boat, and I want to talk about that too. So that's a good topic for us and for our audience is how to set up your new boat, right? Because even if you're going from an old boat to a new boat, you have some things that you got to get done. If you're an offshore fisherman or an inshore fisherman, there are some things you just got to get done. You don't buy a new boat or new to you boat, stick it in the driveway and expect to go fishing the next day, right?
Absolutely not. I absolutely not. There's so many things to do. And just like, you ran it out this weekend, took it for a test. Of course, you were having trouble finding the transducers when you got the boat on Friday and had some concern over that. And I'm guessing they were glassed in. Were they glassed in?
No, they weren't glassed in. There's a secret compartment underneath one of the hatches. So you open the hatch and it looks like a hatch. And then there's this removable hatch underneath that I had no idea existed. So when we pulled that out, we found the transducers. When the boat first arrived, it's got 2 Garmin 7210s on it, or 7212s, and I cut them on, and of course they're nice machines. And there's the radar as it should be, and there's the charts as it should be, and where's the sonar? There's no sonar coming up in the combos, right? So you start looking under the boat, and you can't see any transducers under the boat because it's sitting on the bunks. And so you start looking in compartments in the middle of the night, and you don't see any transducers in the bottom of the boat.
Yep, then you get nervous.
Then you start getting nervous. Do we have transducers on this boat? Is this boat not ready to fish? And so anyway, after a couple of days, of it sitting in the driveway. Finally got it out on the river and started pulling things apart and playing with wires and following wires around. And we found the transducers underneath a secret compartment. I knew we had a sonar module on the boat, so I knew it had been set up at one point in time, but I didn't know if anybody had ever installed any transducers. So anyway, we found them, got it all hooked up, got it working right. Just needed some new wiring harnesses. And
so you got all Garmin stuff.
All Garmin stuff. It's got a Airmar 175 B175L.
That will get your
on the port side.
Okay.
Which is for deep drop fishing.
Yep.
Where you can fish out, up in the Northeast, you could fish the canyons. Here you could swordfish or, barrel fish out in 2,000 feet of water if you wanted to, if it's got enough power behind it. And on the other side, it's got a 175H.
Which is going to give you your better quality picture in that 200-foot range.
200 or less foot range, yeah. Correct. Yeah. So it's got one on both sides of the keel, and two machines to run it. So you could run both at the same time. And for divers or bottom fishermen who are really looking for cracks and crannies, what we call fuzzy bottom or craggy bottom, as we talked about on a prior episode, it's going to be a good bottom machine for a good bottom boat and a good bottom machine for really studying the bottom well.
Have you got Autopilot on there?
It doesn't have Autopilot. I may install Autopilot. I may not. So I tend to not use Autopilot on center consoles as much as I think that I'm going to. Now, people that have it say, "Oh, we use it all the time," but the truth is, you don't use it all the time. If it is flat as a fiddle offshore, I mean, just flat as a pancake, looks like glass. You hit the Autopilot and you run, but you're still going to sit right in front of the seat the whole time, and you're going to watch where you're going.
Yep, got to.
Right? You're not going to run Autopilot in the middle of the night or early in the mornings or late at night. Most of the time, you're not going to do that. You might run Autopilot from one troll spot to the next troll spot, but you're still going to be there in front of the helm almost the entire time, making sure you're not going to hit a palm tree, a log. Yep. You're not running all your baits through grass. You're not going to hit another boat. I mean, so do you really need Autopilot on a center console? I know they install it on almost every big center console nowadays. I don't know if you do or not. Quite.
I've fished with some guys that you're safer when Autopilot's driving than they are. I'm just being honest. And I'm not talking about just driving and traveling. I'm talking fishing. I'm talking.
That's
I mean, one of my former fishing, got rest his soul, one of my former fishing partners, offshore fishing partners, always drove with his butt. And when I say that, he literally turned around like he was running a sport fisher. He turned around and sat with his butt on the steering wheel and drove like this.
Right. Yeah.
And
while you're running baits.
In May.
Yeah. While you're running
at
baits.
Georgetown Hole.
Yeah.
You don't do that.
Yeah. No.
You can't do that.
Well, you'll hit another boat, or they'll hit you. I mean, the problem in places like the Hole or the 380 Hole, off of South Carolina, the places that are very crowded. In springtime, when the dolphin bite shows up or the tuna bite shows up, the problem is you got to watch out for other people hitting you.
Yep.
You got to be a defensive driver when you're in the middle of a troll spread in the Georgetown Hole, for instance, rather than just an offensive driver. I mean, you got to be a defensive driver. So if you're backing down on a fish, I get it. If you're working a billfish, I get it. But you got to be a defensive driver when you're in the middle of a troll spread.
Exactly. Like that. At least have your head on a swivel where you can go backwards and forwards. But when you're sitting there facing backwards like he used to do, I mean, we had an incident, and I actually saw it on charlestonfishing.com, and I just did not. This is how long ago it's been. I did not comment. I just said, praise the Lord. It wasn't my boat we were on or anything, but they did come. We got so close to one boat, and in their defense, they were not moving.
Yeah.
In their defense, they were stopped. They were just dealt with getting fish in.
Right.
And they were trying to get the rods back up, and I heard them screaming, and when we turned around, he was able to turn the boat quick enough, make a maneuver, that the only thing that hit where our outriggers did clang together.
Right.
And, man, I mean, that'll get your attention quick, and I knew this gentleman through a mutual friend of ours, his and mine, and I told him, I said, listen, I'm not going back with him. I'm not driving. I mean, he was a bad boat driver too. I mean, we had to leave from Mount Gilead to go fishing, and some of the areas you go through at Merle's Inlet from Mount Gilead to the jetties.
Yeah.
In the dark, and he only knew 2 speeds: stop and wide open. That was it. And when he came out of Mount Gilead, he didn't care. And
I think I know who you're talking about. So
but
don't call his name.
Oh, I'm not. But
I think I know who you're talking about.
He scared me to death. So, but getting out there and having that autopilot, I think on some days I love it. I do love it. If you're short-handed, like with Team Marshall's Marine and Key West boats offshore fishing with Lucas, we don't have autopilot, and we normally fish 3-handed. Or 3-headed, or 6 arms, whatever you want to call it. But we normally fish with a small crew. So when it comes to time to put it out, somebody is normally like reaching over to the steering wheel and then running back and putting a lot, and reaching over.
Yeah.
So autopilot in that situation would be good. But
how do you fish a weed line on autopilot?
Okay. I wouldn't. No, you're right. I wouldn't mess with it on weed line. You got to watch your lines. You've got to drive the boat.
So you're talking about fishing open ocean.
Yeah, I'm just talking about fishing open ocean.
I mean, if you're trolling, especially high-speed trolling, if you're trolling between the Georgetown Hole and Winyaw Scarp, which for those of you who don't live here would be about an 18-mile troll.
Yep.
And you want to get, you hear the scarp is on fire and you want to get there, but you want to troll
the whole way.
The whole way and see if you pick up any fish along the way. Great time to stick the autopilot on.
Yep.
You're still going to watch where you're going. You should watch where you're going.
You should.
But, I mean, if you're in the middle of the Georgetown Hole with weed lines and boats, you can't run autopilot.
No.
You can't. I'll tell you what autopilot will do for you, for those boat drivers that are not good boat drivers, like you said.
It'll save gas.
It'll save you some gas.
Amen. It does save gas. I'm not going to lie.
If you've ever looked behind the boat and seen that giant S curve, behind the boat.
Oh, yeah.
The whitewater S curve, you're spending some time on the water you didn't have to spend.
Well, all right, so you got the new boat. She's in the driveway out there, and I know, it's May. We're May 1st, by the way. Oh, no, May 2nd now. So you got to get it ready. Now,
Yeah.
when you partnered up in another boat, you had rods and everything else, so you've already gotten rid of all your offshore stuff, so you have to reload on those.
Yep.
Get set up with that. What are other things that you're concerned right now, things that you got to get done on the boat?
Well, I think the first thing you got to do is pick a boat name.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to pick a boat name. And if you had a boat prior to that, then sometimes that's easy. It's just a whatever two.
Yep.
Right? But if you need a new boat name, now's a good time to get it, right?
That's right.
So let's talk about boat names.
Okay.
Let's talk about boat names. What are the best boat names? How do you come up with them?
I don't know. So we just talked about this on Southern English Radio Show, one of our other entities, but we were talking about it, and like Jason Burton, Captain Jason Burton said, is are you looking to entertain people with your boat name? Are you looking to tell a story with your boat name? Are you looking to memorialize something or someone in a boat name? Those are the big factors that he said he looked at when he started coming up.
So boat names are famous for double entendres, right?
Right.
For those of you not living where we live and not engaged in the English language on a regular basis, the double entendre means where you say something and it also has a second meaning.
That's right.
A word that has multiple meanings, two meanings specifically.
Yep.
So real, R-E-E-L, real fancy, right? Real good. Real, I mean, these are the common names you hear on a regular basis.
Yep. Real escape.
Real
another
escape.
popular one.
Real deep.
Yep.
Of course, those are all, let's say, out of favor.
Yep.
Been used, overused. So what are the new double entendre boat names now?
Oh, I mean, I don't know. We were telling the story about Insano. Of course, Insano is Denton Williams private custom 70 whatever put
Spencer.
And the story that goes with that was quite humorous. It dealt with a King Mackerel tournament that they destroyed a center console fishing in, broke the windshield off, and the tournament director got the windshield. They ended up third, got the windshield from them, and they didn't realize it, and he had it decorated and made into like a trophy. And so when they called them up for their third place award, he handed them that and deemed Denton Captain Insano. And if anybody remembers Waterboy, the movie, that was where it came from, Captain Insano.
Right.
So since then, it has stuck with the boat. But a lot of different names. Jason's skinny girl, fat girl, fly girl, crazy girl. All his boats are have the girl name. Of course, let's explain that further for some non-boaters. That a boat is referred to as a she. Mm-hmm. Always. Help me out with that.
I think it's a love-hate relationship.
Does it have to deal with the fact that they cost a lot of money and they're a pain in the butt? I'm just kidding.
It's a love-hate relationship. That's right. You love it when it works and you hate it when it doesn't.
Yep, there you go. Well,
right.
Well, a lot of crazies out there. I mean, I say crazy. A lot of boat names with the crazy in it. We were talking about Job Site is one of my favorite. Ricky Baker, another departed friend of mine. Ricky Baker's boat was Job Site. Ricky had a construction business.
And when you're on the boat, you're
on the job site.
On the job site.
No matter what, when his daughter, who was a secretary, would answer the phone and they said, "Where is Ricky around?"
He's on the job site.
He's on the job site. Never fails.
I know a lawyer from Charleston whose boat is called Conference Call.
There you go. That's a good one.
Same thing. Secretary answers. Where is he? He's on a conference call.
Yep. And the other boat name that came up that was in our conversation about it on the radio show this weekend was your cousin.
Oh,
last call. I mean, absolutely perfect.
Last call. If you're in the funeral business,
there it is.
There it is. The last call.
That's perfect. And
or in the bar business, I suppose.
Or in the bar business. That's another good one. Yeah. So what have you got any names? You and Renee been working on some names?
Well, every boat I've ever had has been called the Yellowbird.
Exactly.
For obvious reasons.
Yep.
This one, Renee has requested a change in this one, which I'm struggling with because, everybody knows me by Yellowbird.
Yellowbird, yeah, exactly.
But Renee has requested a change. She likes the name Windfall.
Windfall. Yep.
Yeah, which is a double entendre, obviously. If you have spent any time on the ocean, you want the wind to fall.
That's right.
Right. But obviously, if you have a boat, you got to have a windfall to pay for it too. Right. So right. Double entendre, pretty cool name for a boat. We're considering it may be a little too gaudy for me. I don't know.
And I will say this much: you just hit the nail on the head. I couldn't imagine you not being Yellowbird. Now you still have to, in some way, shape, or form, be Yellowbird. And
yeah, but my boat, for those of you who don't know it and can't see it,
it's definitely not yellow.
It's not yellow. It's like a very light blue. Color. Yeah, very light blue color. So a Yellowbird. I was fine when the boat was white, calling it Yellowbird, but when it's blue, I don't know. It seems a little odd.
So what did you have prior to this?
Contender, right? Yeah, and before that, a Hydrosport.
Okay.
And which I broke all to pieces, by the way. We had the 27 Vector.
Yep.
And I broke the gas tank out of that.
Wow.
I cracked the hole on it. I'll tell you a story about the gas tank real fast. So, topped it off, 225 gallons, topped it off, and had beaten the boat up pretty bad over the years, so it shouldn't come as any surprise. But we got about 10, headed to the Georgetown Hole, got about 10 miles off the coast, and just smelled gas like crazy. And looked over the side, and the bilge was just steady pumping gas out the side. And as you know, bilges are run on electricity.
They are. Yep.
Right? They're run on electricity. So that's a little bit of a nerve-wracking. So cut the bilge off immediately and
Oh, wow.
ran it back.
I know where this is going.
Ran it back to shore, ran it up onto a trailer, pulled it out of the water as quickly as possible, called the Coast Guard, and the Coast Guard said, yeah, we could take diesel, but we can't take gas. Called the fire department, and the fire department said, yeah, we can take diesel, but we can't take gas. So I've got 200, something gallons of gas sitting in my bilge now. And so we tried to figure out what to do with it. We finally decided we're going to drive it out to the farm, and we're going to dig a big hole, and we're going to light it on fire. We're going to burn up all that gas. It seemed like a great idea at the time. So that's exactly what we did. We drove it out to the farm, got the backhoe, dug a big hole, pulled the plug on it, let gazillion gallons of gas run into this hole. I backed up about
7-year statute of limitations is already covered, so keep going.
What else are you going to do? I mean,
I know. Keep
it's
going.
like you're between a rock and a hard spot. What else are you going to do?
That-
So, I mean, it's not like I didn't want to dump it in the ocean. So I backed up about 30 yards and lit a flare, shot a flare into the hole, and it blew my eyebrows off. The fire marshal came. The fire department came. It lit pine trees 60 feet tall. It blew the crown off a pine tree 60 feet tall.
Wow.
It blew me and my cousin. I had me and my cousin Jay and a friend of ours with us, and it singed the shirts off of us.
Good Lord.
Blew my eyebrows off. I didn't have hair on my arms for a month. I didn't have eyebrows or eyelashes for a month. 30 yards now. I mean, 200 gallons of gas. That's like an atomic bomb going off. I mean, I thought it's just going to catch fire and burn up. No. It blew up.
Hence the reason we can take the diesel, but not the gas.
Right. So, what do you do with it? I mean, that's a genuine question for anybody out there that knows the answer. What do you do with 200 gallons of dirty gas?
I mean, they're not going to take it at the landfill.
No, they're not going to take it to the landfill. You shouldn't dump it in the ocean. That seems irresponsible. Fire station says they won't take it. The Coast Guard won't take it. What do you do with it?
I don't know. You could have just lit the boat on fire, too.
Yeah, should have done that. Quite honestly, should have. I had fix on it. I had those Evinrude fix on it, and they were the worst motors. I bet I went through 6 power heads.
Good Lord.
Oh, the lowers were great. Never had a problem with the lower. But I went through 6 power heads on those boats before it was all over and done.
Yeah, those were the Evinrude pitch for anybody out there that's listening that has any experience with boat motors. Yeah, they were a nightmare.
Yeah. I mean, but Contender's been great. Freeman, cousin Hayes, his boat, Freeman's been great. This new boat is a Cape Horn.
Yep. And beautiful, I might add. I got to say, it's beautiful. And I know you even, if we go back 6 months, you and I just talking about it, and you were, kind of toying with the thought of another boat, and you said that the 31 Cape Horn is the best deal out there, or 32, whatever. You were.
Yeah, so there's a 31T and there's a 32 XS.
This is the 32 XS.
This is the 32 XS.
Okay.
They also make some other boats. But
Now, what's the XS stand for?
Extra seating.
Oh, okay. That's what got Mama happy.
That's what got Mama happy about it. She wanted extra seating in a boat, so you either got to go with, let's just call them all the bells and whistle boats.
Yep.
Which tend to not be the best offshore boats.
Yep.
They're like sandbar type boats.
Yep.
I don't want to call any names, but if you're in the offshore world, you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Sandbar boats, they're beautiful. They got all the bells and whistles. They got ice makers and they got recliners and TVs and everything you could ever want, but you'll break them all to pieces offshore. And they'll break you all to pieces offshore, more importantly. You have to have a special on dental work after you get back.
Yeah, we're not going to mention any boat names, though.
Not going to mention any boat names. But
we'll just call them a sandbar boat.
That's right, sandbar boat. So, I looked at a couple of those, and I just couldn't do it. I could not bring myself to do it because I knew I wanted a boat that the wife and kids would be happy with, but also I would be happy with when we got offshore. And Cape Horn has this extra seating boat, which means it has forward seating. It also has one of those fold-down seats in the back.
In the back, okay.
Yep. It has the what are those seats called? I always forget what they're called.
Jump seats?
No. The seats at the helm that fold that are half seats that you lean against, and then they fold down into a full seat that you sit on.
Oh, your captain's chairs, but
Yeah, but they're called something.
something else. But yeah, I like that where you do have the option of standing up and driving.
Right.
Which you do spend a lot of time standing up driving.
Yeah, especially if you got any chop. But anyway, got those seats, so very comfortable. You can sit all the way back, steer with your feet if you want. And that seemed to be the happy medium between the sandbar boat and the T, the tournament edition, any other, whatever, the 31T.
I'm going to guess the sandbar boat's probably a little bit less expensive than what we got, or what you ended up with, or
not a whole lot, believe it or not. I mean, those boats have so many features on them
Yep.
that they run up the cost. They run up the cost tremendously on all those features, and the ride's just not worth it.
Now you had found a T that you liked, that you were kind of in. You were almost in on it, right? I mean,
I found a T. My wife just not get into.
she didn't like it.
No, well, she demands some seating.
Yep, I don't blame her.
And I'm sure all husbands out there that are listening to this understand what I'm talking about. Because once it's a T, it's just mine.
Yep.
Right. If it's an XS, it's ours.
That's right.
Right.
That's
and
right.
She wants an ours rather than a mine. So, but I'm very pleased with it. It's got plenty of room, open room, and that Cape Horn hull in the 31 or 32 hull is a fantastic riding boat. I'm not pleased with the 27. I've driven a 27, and
That's when we were talking. I think looks more like a razor blade. It does. I mean, going through the water, it looks narrower.
It's got a weird ride to it. It's got a weird ride to it. It's very roly-poly, feels unstable to me. And maybe it's not a big deal if you're a straight offshore fisherman, but I do a lot of diving and moving equipment around boats and putting, 12, 15 tanks in a boat.
Yeah.
Putting 12 or 15 tanks in a boat and rolling.
Changed the ride a lot.
Changing the ride, and it tended to list to one side when you took off. I think it's got such a deep hole. The Cape Horn has a deep hole, and for such a deep hole, you have to have a little extra length on it. If you don't have length on it, you got to put a lot of back pressure on the stern to keep that hole up out the water. Otherwise, it's got that tendency to roll to one side or another, which is what makes it have such a great ride in heavy ocean, right?
Right.
But you got to have a little extra length on it. You got to get up to that 31 or 32 before it stops it from having that listing issue, at least in my opinion. Now, maybe we're going to get some hate mail from 27 Cape Horn owners, but
where's Cape Horn made? I'm really not. I mean, I'm only
Florida boat.
Huh?
Florida.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a Florida boat.
My familiarity with with that boat company is not any. I haven't seen many. I've seen a 24. They make a 24 also.
They make a 24 too. Yeah.
Yeah. That Elliot Koontz had one. It was a 23, but it was 24 foot long.
And Kurt Gerald had one too. And he said, Kurt told me that the same problem with the 24 is the 27, which makes sense because deep hole, short boat, you're going to have this, it's going to be, have this listing problem. If you got to have enough length on it to stretch that problem out, if you're going to have a real deep hole, you got to stretch that boat out where it doesn't have that listing problem. And the 31, 32, and by the way, they make a 34, they make a 36 too. But the 34 XS is supposed to be one of the best riding boats on the ocean right now.
Oh, wow.
They just came out with that boat, I think in 2020 or 2021. And that boat is virtually impossible to find. I mean, people have tracked those things down to the end of the earth. And
well, you went a long way to find this one.
I did. There was two on Boat Trader. One had been wrecked.
Ooh.
And the guy wouldn't call you back. So it wasn't a good. I'm guessing it had a salvage title. So and this was the other one, and I paid more than I should have paid for it, but it was the only one on there.
Yep.
And, it would have been gone tomorrow if I had not have bought it. But so we're very pleased with it. I think it's a great boat. We're looking forward to the maiden fishing voyage.
Yeah. So space in the boat. You know, the one thing I noticed on the Cape Horn that I'd been on before was that they were similar to a Contender in a sense of storage, like not any enclosed storage or much. Do you have any in there?
It's got a lot of storage.
Does it?
I'll get you on it in a little bit, and you can look inside of it now. It's got a lot of storage. I think it's got a 700-quart fish box in the front.
Wow.
And then it's got two about the same size storage containers under the seating in the front. So the XS gives you a lot more storage than the T did. It's got two cooler insulated boxes in the gunnel on the bow, which is really interesting place to put them. But it's a fantastic place to put them because that's always wasted space up there.
Yep.
So right before you get to the anchor locker, there's two probably 30-quart, 30-quart, 35-quart, something like that, insulated storage spaces on both sides.
Those are the hatches that I see open out
Those
there.
are the hatches.
Okay. All right. I was wondering. I thought that was just your lid from storage down in the boat. Okay.
Yep, on both sides, on the port and starboard side of the anchor well.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and then obviously it's got the seat in front of the console has got
Storage
space in it, insulated storage space in it. It's got a fish. It's got a live well that you can get inside. It's huge. Blue painted, beautiful, giant live well. I don't know how many. It's got to be 60 gallons, 55 or 60 gallon live well. And then it's got storage in the floor in the back. It's got storage on the helm. Underneath the seats, it's got storage everywhere. Everywhere you look, it's got storage. It's great on.
That's
storage.
great. Yeah, that's completely opposite of what I thought it would have. So you're not gonna have any trouble being able to get everything on there and keeping it in there. You've got. Yeah. I mean, you'll be able to get everything you need in the boat and keep it in there.
Yeah, I think it's got 56 rod holders.
Oh my gosh! So the guy was a kite fisherman.
It must have been. Must have been. But my boat's only got. It did have 58 hours when I bought it, but it's only got 70 hours on it now.
Wow.
Yeah. So if he kite fished, he didn't do a lot of it.
No, he didn't.
Let's just put it that way. He didn't do a lot of it.
So wait a minute. Y'all were able to put 12 hours on it this weekend?
No, between the time I bought it and it got delivered,
okay.
He had put some hours on it, and I'd put some hours on it.
Oh, okay. All right, good.
Yeah.
That's not many hours at all. You got electric. You got room in there to plug up electric reels. You got some outlets already rigged up.
I do. It's got an onboard charger.
Right, that's good.
Yeah, and I think I can draw power. I got to figure this out. I think I can draw power directly from that with an inverter maybe. I got to check that out. I think there's a way to do that. But there's a plug in the back of the boat for an onboard charger. I think I can draw it the other way. I got to check with somebody on that.
Yeah, that's a good question though. That's a good thought though. Yeah, because you're going to need it for our sword fishing trips.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Because we definitely going to need electric reels for that.
Well, we got some good intel from our buddy Nick Stanzik.
Exactly. And we're going to get some good intel in the next couple of weeks from Bouncer.
Yes, we are.
Bouncer will be here. So
yes, we are.
We'll get some good intel from him as well. Just thinking about it, you got downriggers? You don't like to fish for king mackerel.
I'm not a
I know.
I'm not a king. King mackerel. I have no qualms with other people king mackerel fishing.
Yeah.
I don't want to spend my time.
By the way, we're sponsoring a king mackerel tournament, and Hooked on Miracles.
Glad they're doing it.
We are sponsored, and we have two entries into it. So
yep.
You might have to pretend to like king mackerel fishing for one Saturday of the year.
Okay, I think I can handle it.
Because we're going to do a podcast down there too during the captain's meeting at Hooked on Miracles. Actually, at the sponsors dinner, not the captain's meeting.
I've caught some pretty big king mackerel, but it's been by accident.
I know. Listen, I really and truthfully, the only time I get excited to king mackerel fish is if it's a tournament. For real. Well,
you could make it a whatever. You could make it a pinfish tournament, and I'd get excited if I could win. Right? I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. If it's a tournament, it's about competition.
Well,
right? So I don't care if it's king mackerel or if whatever what it is. The one difference is with a king mackerel tournament, I feel like everybody and their mama's got the biggest, baddest 56-foot center console with 18 outboards on it, and it's become more, and please forgive me if you're a giant SKA fan, but it's become more about how big and fast your boat is than it is about catching fish. I mean, these guys will run 85 miles an hour, 180 miles in one direction to go
one
direction to go catch a kingfish and run it right back. And I don't know, I don't get that.
All right, so I've been on your same page with that. I completely was against it, adamantly against it, and then I had it put back at me in a sense of this: if you're entering the tournament, do you not want your best chance to win? I said yes. Well, if you know that, let's just say Moorhead Inlet, or let's just say Swansboro Inlet, if you know for a fact that there are big kingfish getting caught there every day, is it not worth for the 50 or let's say 35 to 80,000 that you could win? Is it not worth going up, spending the night fishing for your couple hours? Because that's all you get. Because you got to be at the weigh-in in Charleston or wherever, so you only going to get a couple hours to fish. Is it not worth it? I have to say, if you can afford it, and if you're willing, because it still doesn't guarantee you a fish, if you're willing to put that much extra money up to basically bet that you're going to catch a fish, then so be it. But I'll take my chances closer to home. I'll take my chances closer to home, and more times than not, a winning fish comes within a lot closer proximity to the tournament than does from far away.
I've seen a lot of king mackerel in the water as a spear fisherman.
Yeah, how do they show up? Are they swimming nonstop, or do they stop?
No. So you would think it's a lot like even wahoo stop.
Yep.
But you would think, based on the way the fish is built, that it is just constantly speeding around. Yep. But it's not. I mean, they're easy to approach underwater. I hate to call them stupid because you don't ever know what a fish brain is like, but they seem very easy to approach underwater. And they will stop, and they'll turn sideways, and you can shoot them very easily. They're not hard to kill. But I'll tell you, there are. I don't want to give away. But there are about 3 or 4 spots off of our coast that I can guarantee you there's a kingfish on, right? And then you'll go to a spot just a little bit of ways, and there's no kingfish. There's no kingfish. And I don't know what the rhyme or reason is behind that. I never tried to figure it out. But there's about 3 or 4 spots that are guaranteed kingfish. You're going to see them on the way up, or you're going to see them on the way down. One way or another, you're going to see them. And if I was kingfish tournament fishing tomorrow, I'd tell you these 3 or 4 spots. That's where we're going to go
to. Yep.
And a lot of times, Inglis, I'll notice in the king tournaments, we've got people fishing right off the beach.
Yep.
Most of these big fish that I see, and I'm not saying you can't catch them right off the beach. Obviously you can, but most of these big fish I see are in 120 to 180 feet of water.
Yep.
So,
yep. And I know this year your buddy, Mr. Freeman, who won the Hooked on Miracles, and then the next week won another tournament, and he was fishing in 150 to 180 foot of water.
I believe it.
And,
I believe it. A lot of people don't go out there to catch.
They don't. That's a long ride to go king fishing.
Well, it is, unless you're going to drive 200 miles to North Carolina.
That's right.
Or 200 miles to Georgia, right, and to go fish in 50 feet of water. But you could also drive 60 or 70 miles east and find a big kingfish off of South Carolina.
Yep, I've never targeted kings out there. I know they live bait, troll, do everything they say the same way they do. I just can't imagine I can't imagine feeling confident in 180 foot of water trolling for kings, just kings. But the fish are there.
Yeah, well, I think most people think pogies equal kingfish.
Yep.
I mean, right? I mean, that's the, I guess if you had to get into the mentality of a kingfisherman, pogies equal kingfish. That's probably true. There's a lot of kingfish eating pogies, I'm sure. You see them skying around them, but cigar minnows also equal kingfish.
Yep.
Right?
Live cigar minnows.
Live cigar minnows also equal kingfish.
Yep.
I'm sure I'm sure flying fish equals kingfish. I'm sure. In fact, I know flying fish equal kingfish. I've seen one eat one before.
Well, you can stop at your family's reef.
Yep.
And jig up cigar minnows almost from now until the fall. I would say they're there now, but typically from now until
really December.
Yep, later. Yeah, you can stop in there and jig up some really nice cigar minnows.
Yeah.
And I bet there's some cobia showing up there. They love hanging out at that reef.
And
we're talking about the Goldfinch Reef. Merle's Inlet 60, is that the other thing they call it? It's got two names, right? Goldfinch.
Yeah. I mean, because it's grown so much now. I mean, there's a gazillion pieces of structure on it now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's 65 to 68 feet of water, 18 miles off of the coast, and it holds a lot of cobia, it holds a lot of spade fish, holds sheep's head. It's really great spade fishing if you're a big spade fisherman.
What's on the bottom there? Boat?
Lots of stuff. There's APCs. There's a barge. There's
subway cars.
There's subway cars.
Okay,
there's about 1 million shopping carts. There's a lot of stuff.
You know, the metal shopping carts are a great idea.
Yeah.
They were a great idea for reefs. They are a great idea.
Yeah.
Just seems like if you get them to lay in and get them around each other, I don't know. I can just see them that it just be a perfect location for a habitat for fish.
Yeah.
And I've seen the spade fish out there and never gone there concentrating on them, but I bet there's some big ones there. And at Bill Perry, I noticed, same depth.
I love the spade. It's not something that I do very often. If I'm 18 miles off the coast, I'm on my way to kill a grouper, more than likely, or a hogfish. But I love the spade fish. That is when you get them chummed up and you get them excited, that is such a fun thing to do.
They will kick your butt.
Yeah, they will. It's like a giant brim.
They are a very formidable foe. I've had them break two different loose rods on camera. Had them break them, and then now that was partly my error too in not getting that drag set perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're doing the trolling motor like I'm doing now, you don't want to give them too much room to run. Yeah. Because you'll get them up there and get them tied into your trolling, if you're anchoring with your trolling motor. So I did have the drag set a little bit tight, but completely snapped down about the third eye on both rods. Snapped the whole end off, and got both fish in. Praise the Lord. But moving off of the boat thing, and let's what else were we going to talk about? We got a lot to talk about.
We do, and we didn't talk about.
By the way, we're at 41 minutes already.
Jeez.
Time flies. I know, keep going, but we were going to talk about some other stuff.
We were going to talk about outfitting your boat.
Yep, outfitting it.
Your new boat. And since I'm in the middle of doing that, I figure I can give some advice. It seems pretty obvious, but it's not always as obvious as you would like it to be. What's the first thing you got to do? You got to name your boat.
Name it. Yep.
We've already talked about that. Second thing you got to do, safety equipment. Because most of the time you buy a used one, if it's got safety equipment on it, it's outdated, it's old, and the Coast Guard or DNR they're gonna hit you on that.
They're gonna tear it up.
They're gonna tear it up. And just about the first thing you do when you go get a new boat is throw it in the water, and you want to run it and you want to test it, and welcome to do that. But you likely don't have your paperwork in order. Right?
That's right.
You likely don't have your registration. Maybe you got a temporary registration. You almost definitely don't have all your safety gear as you should. So you got to take a little time and you got to think through these things. You got to get the stuff on your boat that you need. Safety gear.
Yep.
You got to have a PFD for every single person on the boat.
And I suggest getting the larger Type 1, I think it is, or Type 4, whatever it is. But get the one with the neck support.
Yep.
So that in case you do have to use it, that it is reliable in the ocean. Especially if, we're outfitting an offshore boat here. But yes, PFDs, you have to have a throwable.
You have to have
we
a
already
throwable.
mentioned that.
Yep.
Throwable.
Throwable's the square floatable usually. I mean, you can also have a round one, but for, most of the time our purposes is the square floatable, which also doubles as a seat cushion.
That's right.
You have to have at least one fire extinguisher, maybe more depending on the size of the boat.
Yep, you're going to need 2.
I'm going to need 2 on mine. Yep. I think 26 is the limit. Anything more than 26, you got to have 2, I think.
2, I believe. Yep.
Yep. You got to have 2 fire extinguishers, 1 or 2, depending on the size of the boat, or more if you have a bigger boat. You have to have some form of communication, whistle, bell, air horn, something like that.
That's right.
And there's also a length limit on that. So if you are, let's see.
I would suggest also too, if you're really looking, check your local game DNR, your local DNR. Check the website. You can find all the things that technically, legally, you have to have through them as well. We're only going over what South Carolina's
that's right.
regulations are. So yours may be a little different, but
so I think so. South Carolina, and if you register your boat with Coast Guard, it's a different story also. But South Carolina's, I think, are mimicking the Coast Guards. There are some states that may actually require more. Right.
Now, are you going to register it, or are you going to have it documented?
I have not had it documented. I think I'm going to do registration. If we decide to take it to the Bahamas or something at some point in the future, then you have to have it documented.
Documented, yeah.
But we haven't gone that route yet, because when you're buying a new one, you have to go through a title work process if you're going to have it documented, and then it's better to just hire one of those companies that does the documentation for you, because it can become a pain and you'll mess it up.
Yep.
You'll mess it up. So it's better to just pay a small fee and get them to do the documentation for you than you try to do it yourself.
Now, we mentioned flares.
Oh, we haven't? I don't think we did mention flares.
Okay, so you need flares.
So we said PFD.
Yep.
Throwable PFD. Fire extinguishers. Whistle, bell, air horn.
Yep.
Flares.
And then I always suggest, along with an aerial flare, I always suggest, go ahead and buy a pack of the true flares that you can pop off and hold, because that's just, just in case you need to use it, you've got every option you can have there.
All right, now let's talk about, since I've spent some time in the ocean, and I mean literally in the ocean.
I heard this story, but keep going.
Let's talk about optional safety equipment that I think you ought to have, if we could, for just a minute, okay? Because I think the safety equipment's great.
Yep.
The stuff that I'm going to tell you about could literally save your life.
Strobe or a chemical light on your life jacket.
Strobe or a chemical light. I also like dye packs.
Okay.
I like dye packs a lot.
Okay, I can see that.
Okay, if you don't know what a dye pack is, it's like a fluorescent dye that will sit on top of the ocean, spreads out over a big area, and it's easy to see, easy for first responders to see and Coast Guard to see. And sometimes what might not be obvious from a mile away, if you've ever been up in a helicopter or a plane, everybody's been in a plane in the middle of the dark over the ocean, it's just a giant mass of blackness.
Yep.
But and one little flashing light from 5 miles away, you might not notice, especially on a night that has a moon, right? Because that moon reflects off of the water, and there's a million little specks of light on the water.
Yep.
So one thing that I really like is a dye pack. It'll stand out, and you can see it in the day, you can see it in the night. The fluorescent ones you can see at night too.
I love it. That's a great idea.
I'll tell you what else. So this is mostly tailored towards scuba divers, but you could do it. You could do it if you were a non-scuba diver as well. In your BC, that's the floatable that that floats you to the surface if you're a scuba diver, and you could do it with certain life jackets as well.
Right.
I always put one of those little bottles of water, one of those little 8-ounce bottles of water. You unzip your BCD where the actual inflatable is inside of it. It's got a protective coating on the outside that will unzip. I unzip it and I stick it in an area. It doesn't matter if it's hard to get to because you're going to take it off and you're going to get it. But if you're floating for 8-10 hours and you need some water, it's there. Same thing with a life jacket.
Yep.
Zip tie it to your life jacket. Unzip the life jacket from, if it's got a protective coating on a life jacket, unzip that protective coating and stick a piece of, one of those little bottles of water or one of those like freeze-dried packs of nuts. Just something that will sustain you while you're on there if you ever, God forbid, have to float.
Right.
The other
I
thing.
I love that.
The other thing, and I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours. So if you feel like I'm boring you to death, Capt,
a gun.
let me know.
A gun.
That's probably not going to do you as much good. But if you're ever in a situation, and we ought to get Tony on here. There's a guy that we know whose boat was cut in half by a freighter.
Yep.
Okay, and he can tell you some, as I can tell you some real life topics about how to survive floating in the water for any period of time. The Sweet Tea, you remember when it got cut in half by the freighter?
That's right. And they survived, right? All of them?
They survived. One of the first things you need to do, find a rope, find anything that floats, and you need to lash it all together. So you just have a big floatsome, coolers and life jackets, everything you can get, you swim around and you lash it all together with a rope. So, I mean, when your boat goes down, sort of morbid stuff, but I think it's important that we talk about it. When your boat goes down, stuff is immediately going to float off of your boat, especially coolers.
Yep.
If you don't have it weighed down with 200 pounds of ice and it's closed up. Stuff's going to float. Life jackets are going to pop out. Cooler's going to float. First thing you need to grab, other than maybe your GPS, your spot or your EPIRB, is a rope. And you swim around and you tie every single one of those things together. Every life jacket, every cooler, every single thing that floats.
Everything.
But not to the boat itself.
No.
Not to the boat itself.
No, that would not be smart. Oh, got everything tied off. Oh, wait a minute. The boat's starting to sink. Oh, there goes everything straight to the bottom.
There goes everything to the bottom. And that will a lot of people will think, oh, that boat's,
it's floating.
It's floating. It's good. Don't do that, nope. Right? Especially some people will tie themselves to the floatsome. Don't do that, right? I mean, if you tie yourself to the floatsome and the floatsome tied to the boat and the boat decides after 6 hours it's going down, you're going down with it unless you can get that knot untied quickly.
Yeah. So a ditch bag is, in essence, really the easiest way to manage all your stuff.
It is. A ditch bag is great if you can get to it. If you can have it in a place that pops loose. You need to think about when the boat goes down, what's going to happen to the stuff, right? Yep. If you've got it in a place, I've seen a couple boats that were upside down, and all of the stuff. When a boat turns upside down, all the stuff gets forced to the top. Right. It gets forced up against the deck.
Yep.
And it's just about impossible to get anything down. There's so much pressure pushing all that stuff to the top.
Yep.
You can't get it down. So if there's anything, in a zip compartment, in your helm, anything like that, it's not going to pop out. Most of the time, it's not going to pop out. You've got to get it to a place where it will pop out when that boat starts going down. If you know the boat's going down, it's starting to list. The bow's coming up. You got to get all the stuff you can to the deck so that it pops right off that boat when the boat goes under.
Yep. That's all situations that we don't want to have to be in, but you're far better off being prepared for the situation if it does happen. And you mentioned earlier about the I see you got radar on the boat, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah,
you have radar.
Yep.
I see so many idiots leave like at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, and I'm at the jetties, maybe getting my coordinates in or whatever, doing whatever, and all of a sudden here comes right by us, wide open, with no radar, no nothing. I mean, you mentioned it, like the palm trees floating out there, logs floating. I've seen, after the big floods in the river, I've seen telephone poles out there.
Yeah.
Those are things that radar doesn't even pick up.
Yeah, well, I mean, radar is not perfect.
Nope.
It's not the perfect solution. The perfect solution is being vigilant. I mean, it just is. And I mean, we as divers and fishermen leave early in the morning and come back late at night. Sometimes you get into a storm and you can't help it. You're coming back at midnight.
Yep.
Sometimes you break down an engine, whatever it may be. I mean, but we're going to be coming back and leaving in the darkness sometimes. The best thing you can do is not ever get too comfortable with the ocean, because when you get too comfortable with the ocean, it'll bite you.
That's it. And one since we're on the safety kick now, one other thing I want to throw out there is file a float plan. You don't have to officially file one if you don't want to go through the work. I mean, it's not that much, but make sure you got 2 or 3 people that are knowledgeable boaters, at least one of them. Let them know where you're planning on going. Let them know when you're planning on coming back. Let them know any other changes that might happen, throughout your day. In other words, if you say, hey, I'm going to the Georgetown Hole and we'll be back at 7 o'clock, whatever, just mention that, hey, if the fish aren't biting, we're probably going to either go north or south and find warm water, just so people know, because that little change in path, if you don't show back up, that's a big, area for them to switch and have to try to locate your boat. So filing a float plan is huge.
Even with the inReaches and the spots that are out there now, the GPS satellite connectors and texters, I still, as soon as we leave, I text my wife and I say, leaving from whatever landing it is, on whatever boat it is, leaving from Carroll Campbell Landing in Georgetown on a 42-foot Freeman or a 37-foot Freeman or a 32-foot Cape Horn. Here's the name of the boat. We're headed to the Georgetown Hole area, and I'm going to have my spot in reach or whatever your satellite connector is. I'm going to have it, and throughout the day, I'm going to ping you, and you're going to see my breadcrumb trail, and you're going to get a text from me. So, I mean, even then, but I'm telling you, English, the problem is people get too comfortable.
Yeah, they do.
With the ocean.
Yep.
People get too comfortable with it. And, you sleeping people do overnight. That's what happened to Tony and that crowd. They were doing it overnight, and they were sleeping, and it wasn't their fault.
Nope.
I'm not saying this one was their fault. I'm just giving you an example of how things.
So the freighter never stopped either, right?
Right. Never stopped.
How do they not stop? How do they not pick up that boat, though?
I don't know. They should have picked it up. Certainly the lawyer in me says, that's liability.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. They owe them a boat.
Owe them a boat.
And they owe them gear, and they owe them the scare of their life.
There you go. That's a lot of times I'll say that I probably disagree in some court cases when I see what the way it goes and what people are awarded for psychiatric effects of whatever happened. Mm-hmm. But that's one where definitely I couldn't sleep at night. I would have nightmares every night thinking about that.
Well, it might ruin you from fishing.
Yep, and I do understand you did float. I don't know how you do it, but you did float around the ocean for quite a while.
I did, yeah. And, and it does. I mean, it affects you.
I can't imagine the thoughts that go through your head. It's like, is anybody coming? Are they going to show up?
Yeah, it does. It affects you, and it'll change you, and everybody should be vigilant.
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody should be vigilant.
Yep. So I guess what we're going to have to do is maybe come back on another episode and talk about getting your tackle ready.
We didn't even get to. We didn't even get to tackle. We got off on a safety, which I'm glad we did. I'm glad we did. 'Cause
I am too.
We had talked about needing to have that conversation in the past, and I'm glad we did it. But we need to get to getting tackle ready.
Yep.
I mean, rigging out outriggers, rigging up outriggers. What tackle you need based on what you're fishing for and what you're doing, and how you should rig up the boat.
Are you a nylon or are you a monofilament outrigger guy? Do you like?
Right now, I'm a whatever I can get. but yeah,
I'm gonna help you out because I got you covered with the monofilament.
So I like monofilament.
Yep,
I like monofilament.
I do too. I think it's easier to work with. I think
it's certainly smoother.
It's smoother, way smoother.
It runs through the eyes better on an outrigger, and so I prefer it. But I wasn't going to deny you, or I wasn't going to deny nylon. If you had it.
Well, double clip or single clip?
I will likely go. I don't know. I mean, I prefer
two.
But I'll get whatever I can take.
Well, my thing is on the center console. I think it's more imperative to have two. I would have argued the opposite of this probably 10 years ago. But now, after fishing on the 26 Key West, it really and truthfully does make pulling, dragging 7 baits or 8 baits possible on even a small center console when you've got that other clip, when you've got that second opportunity on each rigger to get another bait or line away from the boat. To keep that spread clear. You're not on a 16-foot wide sport fisher where, it's easy to get those lines out and have them separated really good and pull a lot of rods. But
I'm reluctant to say everybody needs 2 per outrigger because everybody's fishing experience is a little bit different. And if you're not really careful, fishing 4 on the outriggers and fishing 6 on the deck, you'll get yourself in trouble.
In a lot of trouble.
Especially when you start getting multiple knockdowns, right?
Yep.
I mean, you get 4 or 5 dolphin knockdown stuff, or you run through a school of tuna and you knock down 4 tuna at once.
Yep.
You get into trouble quick if you don't. I'm not going to say if you don't know what you're doing. I mean, because if you're fishing offshore, you ought to at least have some experience. But so I'm reluctant to say it's everybody should have 2. I prefer 2, but if you're not comfortable fishing more than 6 or 7 lines, you shouldn't fish more than 6 or 7 lines.
Yeah. Well, one of the other things too is you need to make sure whoever's on the boat who's going to help you run rods, if they're not familiar, make sure you explain to them how those outrigger systems work and the fact that. You can't just so your long rigger gets hit, knocked down, and then you
it tangles your short rigger because
you go to rebait another one and put it out, and they just start slide it out there. There is a method to the madness. In other words, that bait needs to go under the other or vice versa. So you're probably typically going to have to pop off that middle bait, your mid bait. And what I'll do most of the time, unless I'm just like getting that sweet spot where the long riggers are just getting destroyed and they're catching the fish where with that same bait, but a lot of times I'll just pop that mid rigger off or the shorter rigger and put it on and slide it out, and that way I'm starting back, easier to go with the put the next bait that you get back on in the mid rigger. But everybody will find the sweet spot. But it is and that's another reason why I'm real picky about who I fish with. I love fishing with somebody that I know I don't have to turn around and go, "Hey, dude, you can't put that there. Hey, dude, that's wrong. Hey, man, you're going to get tangled when that hits. Hey, how's that line going to go? If that line gets popped, it's going to go straight across the other line. You're going to have both of them." So I'm peculiar with who I fish with for that reason.
Yeah, and everybody has a different method for the madness, right? So you got to sort of ask. I mean, I have a tendency, at least I used to, I have a tendency to sort of take it over and do it my way. But I've learned fishing on other people's boats nowadays to sort of sit back, ask questions. How do you want to do this? I mean, how many lines do you want to run? How many flats do you want to run? How do you want to run your flats? Do you want any down baits? Do you want all 4 outriggers out, all 4 clips out? I mean, do you want a long bait? Do you want a short bait? What colors do you want on the long baits versus the short baits? Do you want any cedar plugs? Do you want all skirts? Do you want all meat? Do you want? I mean, it's just, you know, I would do it my way 100% of the time if I could.
Yep.
But everybody has a little different method, and if it's their boat, the truth is they get to fish it the way they want to. At least they should.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly, and I have been that guy who's kept my mouth shut and fished and fished and fished hard and run baits and done whatever until I got to a point where it was like, hey, can I start? Some people you have to do the suggestive reasonings, and what I mean is you've got to almost make them feel like they came up with the idea for the change, even though you know it was your idea to make the change, but make them feel like, oh yeah, man, that was a great idea. Yeah. And then you turn around and roll your eyes and like, I told you, if you put that out there, we'd have caught something. Because that would have been me again 10 years ago when it came to a cedar plug. I said, this is a lazy man's bait. Like, it's a lazy man's bait. Who in the world wants to pull that? Or a green machine. Now, I always did pull a green machine.
Oh, green machines are great.
Green machine on a bird to me was just perfect.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we what a great real quick before we end today's episode, I do want to give a big thank you out to Merle's Inlet 2020 for my recognition that I was very much surprised with for the winner of the 2022 Golden Oyster Award, which is given annually by Merle's Inlet 2020 to individuals or businesses that contribute to Merle's Inlet, and I would in no way, shape, or form be able to repeat exactly what Stacy read, but it was very much a big surprise, and it was very much appreciated, not expected, but appreciated.
Can I get into that a little bit?
Yeah.
Because you know, I should recognize you, and you started doing my job for me before, and I appreciate that. But English Captain E has been a stalwart in the inlet for conservation and for keeping the inlet clean and keeping the inlet safe. And everybody from Merle's Inlet knows Captain E and knows that that's his record. And I'm proud of him as a partner for him to have been recognized with the Golden Oyster Award. That is the community's conservation award that recognizes him for his service to our community. And so we appreciate you, Captain E, for your service to our community.
Well, I wasn't trying to do your job. I just wanted to. I was highly. I was super excited. I was stoked.
Well, you should be.
Obviously,
It's a big deal.
And surprised, but she didn't divulge too much, but she did, because I told her, I said, who in the world wrote that, Stacy? Because she read something. Yeah. And she said, well, what I did is, she said, there were 8 nominations for you. She said, you had 8 people nominated you. She said, and this individual, and she wasn't going to say the name, but that individual actually came to see me get it. And he's a friend of mine from the Grand Strand Saltwater Anglers Fishing Club. Yeah. And she said, I just couldn't not read what he wrote. She said, so I used it, and that's what she had done. I thought she had wrote that. I was just telling her how good a job she did. But so she goes, yeah, and he's right over there. And she pointed, and just as I turned over my shoulder, he was walking away and got in his car and left. He didn't want that side of it either. He didn't want to be recognized for it. But I really thank my good friend, and I'll leave it at that, for taking the time to nominate me, and for the other ones that took the time to nominate me. And I just hope I can continue in doing what we're doing. Now, I am going to say this much. We had the spring tide cleanup yesterday in the inlet. Yeah. So the Glover family went out in, not mine, my boat's name, because it's not mine. We went out in the not mine and hit all the islands behind the restaurants, which I knew were going to, Goat Island, and I call the other one Drunken Jack Island. But anyway, all right through there. And we went there. And I'll tell you what, man, I hit the jackpot. So I got a new pinfish bait pen. I got a new Fast Troll minnow bucket.
Did you?
It's almost brand new.
Yeah.
I got a new fish basket. Now, if anybody doesn't know, fish baskets are expensive.
Yeah.
I got a new fish basket found.
Yeah.
We picked I don't know, maybe 1 30-gallon bag of plastic bottles and trash through there. And we had a great time. But everybody, I mean, it was great to see so many people out. But more importantly, I don't know if you noticed it, but Charlie Campbell, one of your neighbors and I were talking about it, they were hitting your road. They even came out here and were working the roads here. This is Merle's Inlet.
Yeah.
I mean, it's classified as Merle's Inlet.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
and the whole group that puts on the springtide cleanup deserve a huge round of applause. 30 years.
Yeah.
This year was 30 years that they've been doing it, and it does a great job. And no offense, and don't take this the wrong way, tourists, but it was said yesterday at opening ceremonies that this is not for our tourists. This is for us taking care of where we live. That's what I mean.
It is.
It's just because everybody was like, "Oh, it's perfect. You do it right before summer."
No,
Doesn't have anything to do with that.
No, I don't care anything about that.
Exactly.
I care about our quality of life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, thank you. Congratulations. Hit the
Thank you,
hit the clap button, Captain E.
Where's it at? Here we go. All right, and I'll tell you the other button we're going to hit. We're going to get on out of here. I'll tell you what, we're going to get this one up and going, get this podcast out there. And if you do not follow us yet, go ahead and subscribe on all the platforms. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple. We're on iHeart. We're on Amazon. We're everywhere. You can find us.
And don't forget about our other media sources.
There you go. That's where we're going.
Welcome Outdoors.
And Southern English Radio Show. And listen, we'll make it easier. TrilogyOutdoorsMedia.com.
There you go.
You can check them all out right there. So
We got some great writing in the Welcome Outdoors magazine this month.
Yep, this month was really good. You saw it good.
Yeah.
Listen, thank you guys so much for following the chaos, and we hope we keep you informed and entertained. That's our job. So until next week, hey, we're gonna get on out of here. But remember, if it's fins, furs, and feather, you're gonna find it right here on Trilogy Outdoors Podcast.
Trilogy Outdoors Podcast is a product of Trilogy Outdoors Media. All views and opinions of our hosts and guests are not necessarily those of our sponsors. Trilogy Outdoors is produced and edited by Trilogy Outdoors Media. Be sure to follow us on all the podcast platforms as well as our social media pages on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And also don't forget our other brands, Southern English Radio Show and Walk 'Em All Outdoor Magazine. To find more information, visit TrilogyOutdoorsMedia.com. And remember, if it's anything dealing with fins, fur, and feathers, you're going to find it right here on Trilogy Outdoors.